I noticed the other day that Jürgen Peter had posted a query about adding a form on the same page as the table and making it into a modal pop-up. I know this has been answered, but I thought it was an interesting question, so let me dive in. So in this very simple application, I have a list of clients, and I've removed the ability to add a new client, so I can show you a couple of different ways. So if we go into the builder, go into the clients page, this is the table. The first way, which I think Jürgen was doing, was adding a form which adds a client, and just hit continue and add form. Now currently this has put a form underneath the table. I'm going to first of all just delete all the fields from this. So I now have an empty form. If I come up onto the left hand side and add inputs, I'm just going to add the client name, so I can drag and drop that, or you can click and it will move it. So I'm going to save that form, so I have one form that adds a name. If you hover over it, and I can drag and move that, and I'm just going to put it above the table. So if I go back to my live app, do a refresh, so I now have a form which adds a new client to the table beneath. So this table is sorted by the client name, and it sorts it by the second name, so Anderson, High, Mill, Slater, Smith, Smith and Warwick. So it's A to Z on the second name. So if I add my client in here, Mary Andrews, and press submit, the page once submitted says the form is successfully submitted and shows me a link to reload the form. So if I click reload, I get the form back, but the default is that all new records go into the table at the bottom. I like it so that when it's added, it automatically puts it in the right location. So if I just do a refresh on this page, now the page has been refreshed, it's correctly placed it underneath Anderson, so Mary Andrews is second in the list. So this is kind of the standard way of adding, but I'll show you how I would build this functionality, also from the fact that you're probably going to add more than just the client and name. You'll add their address and phone numbers, etc. When you come into the client form, if I add inputs, once you start adding things like the address and email and phone numbers and notes and such like, if I save that, this form now starts to get quite long, so this whole screen is taken up with the form before I get to my table. So back to the builder, and I'm going to delete this form completely. That just leaves me with my table. So I'm going to add a view again as before, add a form, and the form is going to add a client, a new client, and link it to a menu, and the menu is going to be called add client. And you can see down here that this is now a menu rather than the form, it's a link to the form. So if I add that, just going to click into the page to deselect and then move that button up to the top. So you can click on the orange arrow here to navigate to the page, and the page is here on the left hand side is add client, so it's created a new page. So first thing I want to do is go into the settings of this page and change it to a modal pop-up. Now I'm going to click onto the page, and I'm going to remove some of the fields that the user wouldn't interact with, such as the date it was added and who added it. So this is going to leave me the client name, their address, email, and a couple of phone numbers. So I can see on the left hand side my available fields, so I'm just going to add in the work number and the notes and save. There is one other change I will make relating to this add client title, but I'm just going to show you what this looks like. So now in the live app I have a button, and when I click it, it opens a modal pop-up. The actual form is called add client, and it's also titled add client, so I would get rid of this second title because it's not required. So I'm just going to go back to the builder, click on the form, go to settings, and then I can simply delete that title. While I'm here, I'm going to go back and go to rules, and the submit rules. The standard submit rule is to show a message saying the form was successfully submitted and a link to reload. I virtually always set mine to redirect back to the parent page. So first of all, when the user submits it, the pop-up box will close, it will redirect back to the client's page, it will refresh the table, and the client will be in the correct alphabetical order. So I'm just going to refresh, So we have Anderson and Andrews, so I'm going to add another client. So I filled in all the fields. Currently the only field that's mandatory, denoted by the red asterisk, is the name, but I filled everything in and then click submit. So the record is submitted. It's put Wayne Axmore in the correct position and redirected the user straight back to this page, so a lot more intuitive when adding records. Also means that when you click add client, it makes it much more visually obvious about what you're doing and what needs to be done next to go to the next step. There is one other bit I'll add to this, which is if you click away from these forms, they will close unless you have a bit of code in there to stop the pop-up from closing. So back in the builder, if you go from pages to settings and then API and code and then JavaScript and paste this in, that will prevent pop-up boxes from closing when you click outside them. So I hope this has been of use, and I'll catch you on the next one.